Hey everyone, welcome to the AnthroDish podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Dugnan. This is a new show that is dedicated entirely to how food relates to culture and identity. And I use those terms very loosely because I feel like food and culture and identity can intersect in so many interesting and fascinating ways beyond surface level understandings of what culture and identity are. This is a weekly show that'll come out each Tuesday, and each week I sit down with a new guest who has a personal or professional interest in food, and we speak on a topic relating to their expertise or their experiences surrounding that. My goal in this podcast is to explore the many ways in which food relates to our culture. And again, I use that term very loosely. I think it has the tendency to be a very daunting term, and you think of specific regional cultures or different countries, and not necessarily the fascinating subcultures or undercurrents that are happening even in North America. And I'm interested in looking at how these relate to our personal, our social, or our household identities, and the ways that these all intertwine. I want to dig deep and explore how food cultures are maintaining age-old traditions, how new undercurrents in food cultures emerge, and how foodways influence our world broadly. But most importantly, I want to talk about how they occupy space in our everyday lives, sometimes without us even noticing it. So each week, I'll be sitting down with someone who's either personally or professionally interested in food, and I'll speak with them about those passions. I'll interject my anthropological training to showcase how these individual experiences represent parts of a much bigger and much more exciting whole. I want to showcase the new and exciting research coming out of academia relating to food, but I also want to explore the lives of everyday people who feel intimately connected with food, or who don't feel connected to food, but have somehow been shaped in one form or another by their relationship with food. So to give you a bit of background on who I am, who is this person that's just coming on this show talking about food, my name's Sarah. I'm 26 years old. Yeah, 26. I had to think about that. I'm a PhD candidate at McMaster University, which is located in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, for people outside of Canada. And I study the anthropology of health. I used to call myself a biological anthropologist, and not to kind of get into the name or the terminology game, but my interest used to be, and I still kind of is, looking at the health of past populations, or looking specifically at the biological ways in which health is understood in different communities and cultures. Now I kind of lean towards the anthropology of health because it's not got the same sort of biological implications. It still looks at that, but more and more I'm interested in the social side of it as well. Being a scientist, jumping into that sometimes is a little bit clunky, but as I grow older, I'm more interested in that. I've long been fascinated with how food relates to culture, and I use what's called a biocultural approach to look at health in my research. So what this means is that the biocultural approach looks at health holistically. So I look at how biology, culture, society, economics, politics, environment, pretty much anything that could have some sort of undercurrent or impression on a person's behavior or perceptions, or a community's behavior or perceptions. I will look at how all of these sorts of things interrelate and influence each other, and how that impacts health in any given community. I've been in school pretty much my entire life, straight from high school to my undergrad at Trent, to my master's in Winnipeg, and now my doctoral program. So for those of you counting, that's, pretty much 20 years of school, maybe a little bit more, which is a lot. And with that comes a lot of writing. And the more that I've written, the more that I felt, particularly lately, the urge to share what I'm learning and the stories that I'm taking in a different way. Because, I could give a talk at a conference, or I could publish a paper, but that's only going to be shared with a small circle of anthropologists at the end of the day. And there's so many exciting things happening in anthropology, and also more broadly in food studies, that I think bigger audiences are really excited to hear about. And really want to hear about. So one of my goals is to showcase the amazing work being done by my colleagues. On the flip side of things, I've also spent a great deal of time working in the restaurant industry, in Toronto for some time, which is where I live. And I've gotten to know all these really wonderful and exciting people through that who are so passionate about different things, sometimes food, sometimes not, but so passionate about creation and creativity. And I've really appreciated learning from them in the few years that I've lived here. I think, having spent so much time with all these artists and musicians and playwrights and poets and podcasters, I have really come to appreciate that knowledge comes in many forms. And I think being on the academic train for so long has made me think of success in a very linear fashion of finishing going to finish your PhD, becoming a postdoc, maybe being a prof, having some sort of influential work and research that kind of dictates your success. And I fail to think about how my work can be more creatively shared or how other people's work can be creatively shared. And as an anthropologist, when you're speaking to people in interviews for your research, you start to really value their expertise because they know their community more than you. So that in itself is a very strong form of knowledge. The experiential knowledge of learning a hobby or trade, the cultural knowledge that is learnt, shared, and adapted to fit the lives of new generations, or new and emerging trends in food habits and behaviors that have kind of formed collective unique communities. So the rise of plant-based diets, the Soylent community, the ability to eat solo in a restaurant. There are all so many different forms of eating, particularly in North America, that are so unique and so equally isolated, but also communal. So I'm really interested to explore how people in all these different professions and roles have come to kind of create their own food narratives and work with them on that. So I'm very excited to sit down with people outside of academia who have some connection to food to get their stories as well. Perhaps most importantly, I am the mother to a crazy and brilliant and hilarious 2-year-old daughter, and her name is Rey. And yes, for those of you who are Star Wars fans, we did get the name from The Force Awakens. Her presence in my life immediately shifted my priorities and expanded my research and my personal passions about food, and kind of brought me into this whole other world that I had never thought about when I was in my early 20s. So now, I enjoy looking at it from the pregnancy perspective, particularly, food aversions. I find so fascinating, having experienced myself and listening to other pregnant people. There's just so many weird things that happen to your body and to your relationship with food during that point. The maternal-child connection in nutrition and development, first foods and how those differ between cultures, food guidelines for children, food guidelines for pregnant women. There's just so many interesting biocultural explorations within that as well. So that's a huge theme in my own life lately, and forever. I don't know why I said lately. And I'm sure that'll trickle down into these interviews as well. Finally, I want to send all my gratitude to my partner in real life and on this show, Lucas Wojcicki. His behind-the-scenes work composing the music, editing our episodes, and his endless support and enthusiasm has been so incredibly special to me, and this podcast really wouldn't be launching without that support. It's also pretty dope that we get to work together on a creative project for once, because we've not gotten the opportunity to do so until now. So yeah, welcome to AnthroDish. I hope that you enjoy the story shared here as much as I do. See ya!